Welcome to the What to Read Next podcast. In this podcast, host Lori and me will share a few book recommendations on what you should read next. If you have a passion for books, then join us for this fun bookish episode. Welcome to the show. I'm so happy to have you back. So today I want to do a bit of a reading update. I'm going to give you some stats of what my reading has been like because I'm keeping track of them this year. And then I'm going to give you some summer recommendations. So the first thing I want to chat is the reading update. So at the beginning of the year, I set the intention that I wanted to read 300 books and I wanted to go back to reading a book a day. And then I think a few weeks later, I was like, never mind, that's a little too ambitious. I don't think this is going to happen. And funny enough, how things have worked, I just basically had reset my priorities of reading for fun and reading for joy as opposed to reading for obligation. And I realized that was what was shifting, what was creating a stressor. And so ever since mid-April, I would say mid-April, around mid-April, May, I started reading a book a day. And sometimes I read 2 or 3 books a day because I'll finish off books that I started months ago, and I'll just sit down and just finish, and I'll be I finished a few books. And so I am actually back into a reading group. I have read, as of May 22nd, 94 books, and I feel comfortable. I think I can get to 100 books in by the end of by Memorial Day weekend easily. So I'm really excited. I think I'm in this group I can actually read about 275 books a year. And I don't know. I don't want to talk about the numbers so much because the quantity is not that important. I think for me, the quantity is I'm able to tackle my TBR and I'm able to tackle things that I want to read and just get an escape. And for me, reading is an escape. It's a form of meditation. It's a form of how it quiets my anxiety. I find that if I spend the time, if I take breaks reading as opposed to Instagram, my anxiety goes down. And so that's why I read. I read because of my anxiety. And so I want to keep reading more because of it as opposed to less. So I'll tell you some tips and tricks of how I've been able to accomplish this. The first one is audiobooks. I actually have fallen in love with audiobooks this year, and it's been a lot of fun just to listen to the book in different formats. Whether I start an arc and I just finish the arc listening to it and just getting a different experience, or maybe I'll just I had an arc, I tried to read it didn't work, but then I was able to listen to straight through a couple of days. And so audiobooks have been such a lifesaver. How I'm getting my audiobooks is mainly from the library, Libby and Hoopla. I think mainly Libby is the main place that I'm getting some of the library books. I use Brooklyn mainly and Orange County as my main libraries. Chicago has really good selections. I'm really grateful for Chicago. So if I can't find it in any of those libraries, I'm just check on those. So it's been good to get the audiobooks there. With little to no wait. Some popular books, I have The Grass is Greener and Girls Are Pretty, which is Lauren Weisberger's new book. I just got that audiobook on publication day, and I requested a week before. So it's been really nice to be I'm getting the audiobook, as opposed to waiting for the ebook, and it takes weeks and months. So audiobooks has been great. The other thing that I've been doing is I'm mood reading binges. So what happens is if I find myself reading a book that I like a genre YA, YA romance, then I go back and I read I go back to arcs that I may have, or I may look at some lists and say okay, which ones will be good for me, and then I'll read 2 or 3 books in a week of the same genre. And that's been fun just because it also helped me create content. If I want to make recommendations, I have multiple books to recommend. I've done this for YA, for Mafia, for British rom-coms, or romance, or contemporary romances, historical, and a little bit of everything. So that's been a lot of fun just to go through little mini binges and just it feels like a little read-a-thon that I'm doing. The main issue that I think that's been the biggest change has happened is that I'm reading less for obligation. For a long time I was reading because I needed to post a podcast, or I needed to write a review and I needed to do this. And like, yes, I have access to a lot of ARCs, and that's a really great gift the publishers give me. But there are ways for me to promote the book without having to always give a review. Like, there are ways for me to say, like, you know what, if you like this book, I can actually recommend you so-and-so that you should read this. Or I can actually talk to an author and talk about the writing process and learn more about it. And the author essentially sells me the book. And I'm like, oh, I'm going to read this book. So I had this experience and I really love it. And so I'm moving away from reading out of obligation and just like starting to read based on my mood. And that has made a big impact. I'm reading more because it just feels like fun. If I read out of obligation, I'm reading less. I'm like struggling to finish books. And then that doesn't feel good. So if I struggle to finish a book, I'm actually finishing most of my books. I'm not DNFing anything. What I'm doing is I'm putting them down, and then I'll wait for a couple weeks when I feel like I'm in the mood, and then I finish the book up. And that works for me. It may not work for everyone. I think every person has their own style and their own stuff, but it's like, that's what's working for me. Put the book down, wait a little bit, go back to it, and finish it off. The other thing is I'm reading novellas like K and KU, Kindle Unlimited, because I want to expand in new-to-me authors. And so I started to look for novellas just to get a sense of like what the writing is like, if the story is kind of fun or different and stuff. So I did a Rachel Van Dyken Royal Bully, which is a mafia romance. And so I think you should read the previous series before that to make a better understanding, but it was fine. But that was actually interesting. So it got me hooked to read the next book in the series, which is like a long book. I read a Ruby Dixon novella, which is like a middle-order alien farmer wife. It was bananas, but it got me interested in reading her Ice Planet Barbarian book, which has been mentioned a couple times in the podcast. So I think it's kind of fun just to look for novellas and, KU, which I'm already paying for the membership. So I'm like, it's not costing me money, but it's giving me a sense of like, oh, is this an author that I want to read more about it or not? And at the same time, it's a finished book that I have. So let's talk about stats. So I've been keeping track of all the books that I read. I am keeping track of books read. So if you want to see the list of books, it's on Goodreads. But I've been keeping a separate spreadsheet with my ratings because I don't want to publicize what my ratings are. Like, it's just a personal choice. Like, that works for me. But I've been keeping track of a lot of different stuff. So I have read 45 ARCs. I read 36 new-to-me authors. I borrowed 21 books from the library. I read 31 indie publishing books. And I read 22 KU books. I want to roll out my KU books. I know this spreadsheet has been really great because I keep track of genres. So I know, like, I think at the beginning of the year, I was like, I only read like 2 historicals. And so in April, I was like, oh my gosh, I need to read more historicals. So I grew the list. And I read like 10, So that helps me keep track of like, where the deficiencies are and where can I grow. So that's been fun. I'm going to try to like update this spreadsheet, and maybe I'll do a whole session at the end of the year letting you know all the stats if you're interested. Okay, so now we're going to go to the part that you're looking forward to it. What books you should read this summer. So here's the list of books that I read this summer, read this spring, winter, or early summer that I actually think you should add to your TBR. A lot of these books are already out, or they should be out by the time this episode airs, so you should be able to like pick them up. Read them on the beach, read them in the pool, read them on a fun place in the park, read outside if it's not that hot and humid. If it's hot and humid, read them in the air conditioning, but just read them. So the first one is Hang the Moon by Alexander Belfleur. I have to tell you, I absolutely love this book so much. Like, it's just like, it's a cinnamon roll hero. It's set in Seattle. It's brother's best friend. It's actually really sweet. It's like rom-com-y, social media, astrology, like things that you're just like, oh my gosh, it's like chef's kiss. So Hang the Moon, Alexander Belfleur, add it to your TBR. The next one's The Intimacy Experiment by Rosie Danan. That's a hot cinnamon roll rabbi meets a former sex worker who's a CEO of her sex positive company, and they're teaching a modern intimacy course. And so I love the idea of like a modern intimacy course. Like, the curriculum was like, oh my gosh, yes, I would like to take this course right away. So it was really good. There's a course, there's also like Spiritual Judaism. It's really good. So The Intimacy Experiment, you should add it to your TBR. This one is actually indie publishing, but I found it like it was delightful, and it's not that long. It is called The Off-Limits Rule by Sarah Adams. This is available on KU, and it's like I think it's brother's best friend, and it's the same thing. It's like they're not supposed to be together. She's a single mom. They're not supposed to be together, but they got together. They have this attraction, and it's just really good. It is closed door, but it doesn't feel like closed door. It just feels like a fun rom-com to read, and it's funny. And The Temporary Roommate, which is the next book in the series, they both are available on Hoopla. So if you want to listen to audiobooks, you can listen to them on Hoopla. It's funny. It's like pranks, and it's definitely cute. And so it's another single mom book. So I love both books. They're really good. I gotta mention Talia Hibbert and actor Eve Brown. Like, it's so spicy. It's so good. Oh my gosh. So Eve Brown gets destitute. She's disinherited from her family, so she goes on a drive and finds this first job, and that becomes available, and she stops and goes for an interview, and then she almost run over the interviewee. So it's just fun, and she's like, okay, I'm just gonna have this job. So it's so good. I don't know, and I can't wait for her next series, which is like, I think it's like Shakespeare or Jane Austen retelling. So it's some sort of retelling, but it's like really good because it's like you mentioned some of the characters in this books are gonna be in the next series, but it is really spicy. So if you're looking for spicy books, it's one it for you. If you like rom-coms, like You Got Mail, like Nora Ephron, set in New York, and just a love letter to New York, and a well-done love letter to New York, I would say To Serve With Love by Lauren A. This is slow burn. Like, they don't kiss until like 95%, but it works. Like, if you're looking for a slow burn romance, this one works. There's two storylines. There's like they meet on a dating app, but they cannot see each other. It's like Love Is Blind. And then they actually have a storyline where they meet in person and they hate each other, and more is revealed. So this one's delightful. So I would say add it to your list and just read it. The next one is The Road Trip by Beth Leary. So this one is like, I know it's marketed as a rom-com, but it's much more heavier than a rom-com. I would say it's contemporary romance. It's about a road trip that goes wrong. Like, it's like, you know, you go on a road, you have an accident, they have an accident. The heroine has an accident with a hero who was her ex-boyfriend that they broke up 2 years ago. And they all end up going, because they all end up going to the same wedding, so they all end up going to the same, in a small car, they all end up driving to the wedding. And there's like flashbacks of what happened then when they were together, how they met, like how they have the relationship happen, and how they broke up. And then there's the flashback, and there's the present, like how they come together. And so it is actually really good, but it's definitely heavy, and there's like trigger warnings. So I would say, like, don't expect a cute rom-com, just expect like a fun contemporary romance. Like, that's a different type of contemporary romance. This is like good for you. And it's like a British romance. So British romance that will be like, I think that's what I'm looking for. Okay, the next one is People We Meet on Vacation by Emily Henry. I have to say, I absolutely love this book so much. It's, again, a slow burn. It's not for everyone. I think there's some scene, but it's not a lot if I remember correctly. But the reality is that if you'd like to travel, if you travel, you know, consistently over the past 10 years, and you've drawn all these Instagrammable places and all these different places, it's really fun to revisit those places. Like, I actually I love like being reminded of my own travels, like reading her book and being ignited about like other places I actually visit, you know, once we are open and comfortable to travel. So it's about best friends who stop talking to each other. They travel every year for a summer vacation, and then about 2 years ago they stopped talking to each other after their trip, and so they're basically trying to come. She started talking to him, and then they go on a trip together, and then the rest unfolds. But it's really good. So the next one is Christina Lauren is Back. So they have the soulmate equation, and I have to tell you, I absolutely adore this book. It's so good. It's another dating app, but this one they're genetically matched. They're like kind of like 23andMe. They have DNA matching, and so they turn out that they're compatible like 90-something%. So this is like a really fun one. It's a single mother, cute child, really grumpy hero. He's like, I don't want to do this, but I'm kind of interested. So if you like the Grumpy Sunshine, this one's good. Okay, this one is a little weird, quirky, and it's just so good. It's One Last Stop by Casey McQuiston. It's long, I want to admit. It's like 400 pages or long. It's like a really long book. But I have to tell you, the group of friends, the diverse cast, the sense of like the New York that you get to revisit in the 1970s and in the 2020, it's kind of like fun. You get to experience a lot of New York subway, because most of the book takes place in the subway. So this is like Kay Leopold remake with a 1970s character who's stuck in the train, and then the 2021 character is like they connect and they get to know each other and love romance ensues. It's just delightful. So the next one is If the Shoe Fits by Julie Murphy. So this book is the bachelor with a plus size heroine. So I would suggest, if you want to watch, or if you have issues with want to watch, there's two camps for it. I would suggest reading If the Shoe Fits by Julie Murphy, because this is a body positive, really body positive bachelor show. There's really not a lot of conflict. It's a little angsty. It's really easy to read. It's just a fun escape. So there we go. And then finally, It Happened One Summer by Tessa Bailey. I don't know. Tessa Bailey has been a hit for me lately, and I'm really grateful for that. So this one is a Schitt's Creek reimagined. Rich girl goes to some fisherman's town and falls in love with the local fisherman, and it's just really good. He's alpha hero. He's like, I want you. We're gonna make it work, and it's just so good. He joins Instagram because she's an Instagram influencer. He joins Instagrams, and he's so awkward about it. He's like, I'm just gonna join. I'm gonna follow her. Not having any game with that Instagram, not knowing the logistics of it. He's so foreign, such a foreign thing. So it's a really good book. So that's the Tessa Bailey, It Happened One Summer. So those are the books that I want to recommend with you. So thank you so much for listening. I hope you have a great day. If you enjoyed this podcast, feel free to share with friends, subscribe, rate, and review the show. This is the easiest way to support the podcast. For book recommendations, author interview archives, and other fun book resources and tips, please visit WhatchReNextBlog.com. The Watch Read Next podcast is part of the Frolic Network. To discover new shows to listen and love, please visit frolic.media/podcast. Thank you so much for listening, and have a great day.